Hello and welcome to QInsight, brought to you by QGate, the podcast where honest conversations meet business transformation. I'm Steve Clarke.
And I'm Alastair Jupp. In today's episode, we're joined by Chris Parks, everything Microsoft and business consultant extraordinaire. We'll be discussing the AI revolution, the rise of digital labour, and being an agent boss.
Chris, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much for having me. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Excellent. It's our pleasure. No, we do appreciate it greatly. So, Chris, we've on the QInsight podcast been touching on everything AI related, CRM related, and you've been championing AI, particularly from a Microsoft standpoint and wider standpoint for a good period of time now. So we really wanted you on the show to get your opinion on where the market sits and perhaps where we're going to be going. But you felt it quite important actually to look at where we are in terms of a history perspective, really, and the eras of change was something that was a term that you brought immediately to the table. So I thought it was a really good point to start. What does that mean? Where are we in those eras?
It's the fair first question. And I think one of the things about AI and one of the things that people are going to have to get used to more than anything else is the amount of change that will happen all at once. And when I think back, obviously, in my background, I worked at Microsoft for 16 years, a variety of commercial and technical roles. I've been involved in Dynamics since the start, so I've seen a whole load of change just within the products itself and inside of kind of Microsoft products. But you've got to think a little bit more broadly than that, and you've got to go back to the start. And the AI revolution, or the advance of AI into society, will be way more profound than any of the other changes that have kind of happened before. There's two things that I'd liken this to, and I think all the way back to the Industrial Revolution. We've got a lot of things to thank the Industrial Revolution for, right? We had mass production, with mass employment through production lines, the 9-to-5 working patterns, everybody had to be there. But with that, it brought downsides too. There was a lot of pollution. There was child labour. There was those kinds of things that happened. And the word Luddites is still something that's used today for people who don't choose to adopt technology. That wasn't it wasn't people who were jealous of the machines, smashing the machines up. This was skilled artisans who realised that the machines couldn't do things anywhere near to the level of quality that they were able to do themselves. And that was kind of where the Luddite movement came from. And after that, I think the next real significant shift we saw in the way that the world worked was the internet era. We got away from the 9-to-5. We were able to embrace flexible working patterns. We were always online. Connectivity was there. There was global trade benefits. You could source things from different places. You could stay connected to anybody. The world became flat, I think, is the way that it was perceived at the time. That brought with it then new risks. So for each of these changes, there's been a downside. Never being offline is a risk as well as a benefit. Emails can get you whenever they want, as well as you being able to get your emails, whether that's on the beach. It's one of those challenges that we all face nowadays, is how to switch off. Internet safety, protecting children online, absolutely key nowadays. Social media pollution, different type of pollution, fake news. So I think, beyond the Industrial Revolution and beyond the internet era, we are about to enter into the era of artificial intelligence. And that will bring a whole host of benefits, some of which we can kind of see already, but there'll also be a whole load of potential new risks as well that we're going to need to manage and mitigate.
So
yeah, and on the point of risk, we talk about all the glory and wonder that AI holds and promises to deliver, but absolutely the risks. Ali, where do we sit with that?
It's quite interesting. So Industrial Revolution gave us factories, the internet gave us access, and then I've got we've spoken a lot about this, and I've got kind of a to what we're going to be talking about today. But AI gives us capacity, which is obviously an absolute benefit. But the risks, I think it was Goldman Sachs was saying that 300 million full-time jobs could be affected by AI automation, but productivity could raise 1.5%, I mean, annually. That's a really interesting stat. But for me, there is so much opportunity with this. It's just change, and change is inevitable, right? If you embrace change and you get on board with that change, you'll do well out of this. That's where I am with it.
I think one of the things you've said there, Alastair, about the jobs and the job market, there is this many jobs at risk. And is it the job that's at risk, or is it the role that's redundant? And then
Yeah,
there'll be a job doing
absolutely.
something else. And that's what technology's always kind of enabled. I don't think there's kind of less jobs now than there were in the time of the Industrial Revolution. And it's kind of, I think that it'll be role replacement, and things will become superseded. And when I talk about risk, I think if you go too far down the line with the future of AI, you either end up in utopia or dystopia, and we've all seen the films.
Yeah.
And I think what we should really focus on is utopia, because it's it's a broader job than just QGate or Microsoft, and it's an industry challenge to make sure that the platform and the foundation for AI is secure, safe, and accessible for everyone.
We're talking
So,
in a couple of weeks to Eleanor at Talent 365, where we'll get the human perspective on this. And she's put forward some really interesting ideas. So I'm looking forward to that conversation. But as you say, it is about change of role rather than replacement of individuals. I 100% agree with that.
Chris, one aspect that you've touched upon is that of the capacity gap. So when we talk about AI coming in and potentially taking roles or jobs, whatever that might look like, actually where people are going to fully benefit from AI and what that can bring is effectively plugging that gap, your ability to react to what needs doing in your role, and actually probably refocus your time to the more important elements of your role and leave maybe the administrative or the slightly more mundane elements to AI. So could you elaborate? What is the capacity gap, and how do you think AI can help there?
Yeah, I think this is the fundamental piece that people need to understand when it comes to implementing AI in the business. Well, there's two, right? One is that you'll have an AI assistant, be that Copilot, be that ChatGPT. We can talk about what that is. The next is where agents will start to become part of the workforce, and they will help us bridge the capacity gap. The capacity gap is the gap in between the needs of the business and the maximum capacity of humans alone to meet those demands. I can give you a few examples if you want to, but the capacity gap, it's not about replacing people. It's about enabling people to be more productive and to do and achieve more with the same. Just by supplementing what they have through the use of agents, through the use of AI, and about amplifying the capacity that they can do in their role, not replacing them.
And I know the answer to this actually. In steps Microsoft as a case in point. How are Microsoft approaching that need to bridge that capacity gap?
So I'm gonna. I've some absolute tangible examples of where Microsoft have written to me and had communications with me through an automated solution assistant. An automated solution assistant is an AI agent, and examples of the capacity gap in action. I'll give some generic examples, and then I will talk to you more about a specific interaction that I've had with an AI agent. So if you think about a trade show, for example, we've all been to a trade show. We've all been and visited a booth that somebody has, set up on a convention center floor, and we've all had our badge zapped. Bing, there you go, got your contact details, fantastic. Or conversely, some of us may have worked those trade show booths as well, and we've been the ones that have been scanning the badges. And the conversation normally goes, "Hi, I'm whoever from such a place. I would like to ask you about this," and the person on the stand does the best they can based on the information and knowledge they have. And we have a really nice conversation. You agree that it might be good to follow up and to progress more. And then you go your separate ways. And then about a week later, you will receive, as a delegate who's been to that trade show stand an email that says, "Thank you for visiting our booth. Here's a link to our website for more information." And that's about it. And it feels like a pointless transaction to me because you can guarantee, well, probably 90% of the time, you've already been to their website and had a look what's there, and that's the reason for visiting the booth in the first place. People do the research before they go to these events for the most part. Sometimes you just ask on spec, but for the most part, you've kind of done your research. And then from the business standpoint, to send out that impersonal email, let's say you've got 300 leads from the trade show. It's normally the role of somebody in marketing and often delegated to somebody junior to get that email out. It's a task that has to be done. It goes on a task list. It's impersonal. It's irrelevant to the conversation that was had on the trade show booths. Now, imagine if, as well as scanning the name badge, you could also capture just a little bit of information about that conversation. Easily possible today with mobile devices and tablets that people have access to, and all that kind of lead generation stuff from a trade show. Even if it was just around the topic of interest or what the question was. And then in the background, you've got an AI agent. And instead of sending out 300 identical emails, you could send out 300 personalized emails. "Hello, Mr., Miss, Mrs. Thank you for visiting our trade show. We were delighted to learn that you had an interest in this. These are the things we have. Here's some collateral. Here's some resources. Please do let us know when it'd be convenient to speak again to help further with your needs." And the reason people don't send out 300 personalized emails, they don't have the time, the people, the inclination to do it. And let's say you got 200 responses, you certainly would have the time then to respond to each of those in order to have those conversations. Now, inside of Dynamics 365, there is something known as the lead qualification agent. And the lead qualification agent can be configured to have those personalized conversations. If the lead source is trade show and this demographic and whatever you want to do in your kind of segmentation there, send a follow-up email. And it can do that based on notes that have been captured or similar. Now, that sounds science fiction-y, right? The lead qualification agent can do that. And I've talked about at the start there an automated solution agent. On multiple occasions recently, I have been to a Microsoft event online, or I've been to the Microsoft website and I've downloaded a white paper, and I've had a follow-up email. And that comes from a person with a name and a very nicely laid out email message. And I'd normally get a follow-up a week later. You haven't replied. I really would like to know if I can help. They've been coming from automated solution assistants. Now, having worked inside of Microsoft and having run the kind of the tally web process, as we called it, where leads would come in from the telephone, from the web, from other places, and we had a person that sat there. And the person, it was their job to answer the phone, to respond to the emails, to qualify the leads, and to basically then distribute them to partners to help customers where they were considered genuine. 2.5 years ago, I got my first email from an automated solution assistant at Microsoft. Didn't exist in their global address list, wasn't a real person, and from 1 year old could send out very, very comprehensive emails asking me if they'd like to follow up. Capacity gap. People don't do that because they haven't got the time.
How did you know they were 1 year old, Chris? Was it like?
I asked an old Microsoft colleague. No, I asked an old Microsoft colleague. I said, "Look, I used to run this, and I don't know the name of this automated solution. Names are removed. Can you check for me? They didn't exist in the global address list. They weren't on LinkedIn. So I thought, well, this is somebody at Microsoft who I don't know, and there was no way of knowing them because they actually didn't exist. And they'd been created or born in 2022, and I got the first email from them in March 2023.
This capacity gap, right? We're an SMB. Most of our clients are SMBs. I think out of all businesses out there, it's the SMBs that experience this capacity gap as more than anyone else. I know certainly my team would probably say that. So why are more people not doing more on this? I guess that's where I am at. I kind of know some of it. We're doing some of it. We're trying to do it. It's not as easy as the marketing says it is. But I'll be really interested to hear your perspective on why it's not being adopted more quicker, faster.
Absolutely. And I think there's two sides to this, right? So the other example of a capacity gap, knowledge management agent in Dynamics 365 customer service, where you've got support people who work on resolving issues with customers, and they're so busy moving on to the next issue that they never create a knowledge base article at the end of it. So that knowledge stays in their head. When you've got an agent that can create that article and that content and put it into the repository based on the case, I think that type of capacity gap and that type of agent will be adopted much faster than something like the lead qualification agent, because that kind of customer service piece, you can put that knowledge management article through a review process where you've got a human in the chain that says, yeah, that knowledge base article makes sense to me. I'm going to approve it and submit it to the knowledge base. It's the creation of the article that's the key. With the lead qualification agent, you are putting that out to customers or prospects, and that could impact brand if it's not right. So I think there's a trust implication here, and trusting AI and handing the keys to AI to say, we trust you. Go on and manage my brand, manage my business. And I think for most organizations in the SMB segment, and that's where I've kind of spent most of my working life and most of my focus. Trust is key, because they will spend a lifetime building that up with customers, and they could lose it immediately, and they don't want to lose it based on a mistake that's made by AI. So I think for a lot of organizations, internal adoption rather than external adoption will start first. And things like customer service, case management agent, knowledge management agent, or things like the sales order processing agent in Business Central, for example, those things we will see internal adoption of AI. That's where the trust will come. And then over time, they will probably lead more into using it to work externally with customers, and just handling kind of those kinds of interactions. Microsoft are already there, but they have the power, the ultimate amount of digital labor, virtual people to write and test and develop all of these things. So
they also have an amount of trust, right? Because they're building the things, and when you build them, you inherently have the trust in those. In getting someone else to trust what they've built is probably quite a challenge, I imagine.
I think also there's a kind of broader element of fear there outside of just what these AI agents are going to be doing, whether it's customer service or lead generation, lead qualification. Just a broader topic around security. I was at a partner event in Microsoft London at Paddington yesterday, talking to some other partners, and invariably the topic is around AI. And we were talking about some of the discussions that we've had with our customers, and it's the fear of the relative unknown at the moment, because you now have the capability within Microsoft Copilot and some of these other platforms to kind of ring fence your own organization's data, so that information isn't going elsewhere. It's kind of staying well within the confines of your secure boundary, as opposed to people that may be bringing their own AI. And I think we'll probably touch on that shortly, bringing their own AI to the business and using it and putting all this information in, and it's then being used to train the entire model that anyone then can access. So I think it's not only just about the output. I think there's that kind of broader fear that it could go anywhere.
I think Microsoft has an advantage, right? Because there's an amount of trust of the brand of Microsoft, right? And you're within it. I know personally, I'm a massive advocate for AI. I use lots of different AI tools, but there are some that I use in anger in business, and then there are some that I would never use client facing just because I don't trust. And I'm someone, my wife, I'm banned from talking about AI at home because I'm always going on about AI, and she's sick to death of it, to be honest. But even with someone with that kind of perspective, if I was going to build something customer facing, I purely because it's Microsoft, there's almost like a cushion there that it's Microsoft. And so my preference would be to build it in the Microsoft space rather than outside of it. I think that's a big challenge for some of the others.
I can't remember how many hundreds of billions it was they invested into OpenAI. But obviously all of the models and all of the capabilities are built on top of different AI models. And there's not just one AI model. There are probably 20 different ones inside of OpenAI alone. And a lot of the things that Microsoft talk about are generative AI. And when you've got Copilot, and Steve, you said something there, trust, and about keeping the information ring fenced inside of your organization. Those things are absolutely key. ChatGPT in the wild might not be the best thing, but using Copilot, and Copilot isn't an agent. Let's be clear. Copilot is an AI assistant. It's your AI assistant that can interface with agents. And then Microsoft have written, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 agents, and they're only going to release more. And that's where I think that internal adoption of Microsoft, who have obviously been using them themselves internally as well, and that says that they've been tested. And as I say, the lead qualification agent, I think March 2023. So we're talking 2.5 years ago as of this point in time. Basically where that's been tested, used, and refined. So I also see the trust on the Microsoft platform coming sooner than just other places.
Excellent.
Microsoft, you said an interesting thing there, that there's only going to be more of them. You know, there's more agents coming. So all these kind of typical challenges and barriers and time consumers that people have in their businesses, eventually Microsoft or some of the other bigger providers are going to address those. So for me, the adoption part for SMBs is look at the real problems they're having within their business that are unique to them, and that's where they need to apply the agent technology. I think that's where they can get real value from it.
Yeah,
because eventually Microsoft's going to build something for every problem that's common, right?
Oh, I think Microsoft are very good at giving a platform for things and building what I would call horizontal solutions. And that often doesn't have kind of vertical mindset. So, every organization has a sales process, leads, opportunities, that kind of thing. And a lot of organizations have customer service, but customer service in automotive versus customer service in utilities versus customer service in manufacturing, it's all going to be slightly different. Pre-production, post-production, where is it? And every organization will have a different capacity gap that they will need to fill. And there's two ways you can go there. You can either look at configuration of an existing agent and seeing if you can make it work that way. If not, you can look at custom creation of an agent. And I think one that's always there for me. I downloaded a load of HR policies from the internet, put them onto a SharePoint site, created a Copilot Studio agent, pointed it at those HR policies and asked it questions. And it gave me bring your own device answers back correctly. It told me what I needed to do to take vacation or sick leave. You can tell it to use what it generally knows from the web, as well as what those policy documents say. That's not great if you want to just use your internal documentation, so you have to turn that off. But this rise of it's digital labor. It's a virtual agent that is digital labor that basically can perform the function of responding to an email, helping people get the information they want to faster without impinging on the time of somebody who's already probably very busy inside a HR department, inside a customer service, and so on and so forth. And these virtual agents, this digital labor, they don't take sick leave. They work 24/7. They don't need a break. They're not going to take 2 weeks off vacation, and this is the most knowledgeable person in your customer support organization, and you're going to be left with a hole to fill it. It's that kind of a place where I think people will start to see the benefits sooner rather than later. And call centers in particular, I think Microsoft have got this call center as a service or Microsoft contact center solution. We all love calling up and going, yeah, yes, I have. Honestly, I promise you, I've rebooted my router already. No. You need to know. I'm plug it. That script that nobody follows. That's a fantastic place for agents to kind of start.
We're going to be running some workshops for clients soon where we'll go in and help to uncover opportunities of AI and put ROI models behind doing the particular things for them. And I started thinking, how can I make that easier? And so what I did was use a tool that would help me structure that workshop I'm going to run within an application. So twofold there. I can demonstrate the power. I built this in an hour to support me doing this particular task with you, and it cost me virtually nothing to do that. And not only will it help me do the workshop, but it also demonstrates the capabilities. And that's kind of an example where you can very easily use what's out there without having huge money to benefit, your business. It's really interesting that there is always a way, whatever problem, whatever it is you're doing. You just have to think AI first. You go, is there something I could do with AI with this? And if there is, have a go at it, right? It may work, it may not work, but where Microsoft comes in is more when you're going client, you're going external to your organization, you're getting other people to log into it. Then you need to be a lot more careful about where things reside and what you're doing. But I think there are things SMBs can do today where they're in control of the application or whatever it is they build, and that almost the agent boss, I guess, is it. I think.
Yeah.
Most SMBs I know are too busy running their own business to think about creating their own AI agents, Alastair. And I think that's where you kind of come in, right, as the service provider partner.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Ali, you mentioned the term agent boss. That's something Microsoft has coined, I think, relatively recently. Chris, what is an agent boss?
Everybody who uses Copilot is an agent boss, right? So you've got these 3 levels towards AI. The first, Microsoft have coined a term, journey to the frontier firm. Frontier firm is a business that adopts AI, kind of leading edge, one of the early adopters. And they've said there's 3 levels. And the first level is somebody who uses Copilot as their virtual assistant. And what they are using is digital labor, and they become an agent boss, right? And Alastair just said, I've created this in an hour, and I've done this, right? I think probably 18 months ago, my first thought was, oh, can AI help me with this? And now my mindset has completely changed. I know AI can help me with this. It's how much can it help me with this? So every time I come up with a concept or I come up with an idea, and I go to Copilot and I say, right, here's my prompts. This is what I want to do. This is what I want to get back. And it'll give me kind of 80% of what I want by replying. I can fine tune it and I can tweak it. And I'm an agent boss. I'm putting digital labor to work for me. Microsoft have the researcher agent, the analyst agent, built to think like a skilled data scientist, or to build a new go-to-market plan, or to do market research, right? We're all agent bosses when we start using those agents in an online world. And I think people are going to have to learn to delegate to AI in the same way that they do to people. And that's really the foundation of becoming an agent boss. And in the executives, that's not going to work for somebody who's on a production line. Right? It's not going to work for somebody who's operating fabrication machinery and manufacturing. But in professional services and in kind of the exec world, it's a shift in mindset, becoming that agent boss, which will be key over time.
When you're delegating to AI, I mean, essentially, are you giving it responsibility?
It's a great question. So you're only giving it the responsibility that you want to give it, right? And you've got this human mindset in there, and you can read what it says and you can go, I like that, or I don't like that. If you don't like it, you can tell it that you don't like it, and you can ask it to do it differently. If you do like it, great. Can you add this, that, or the other? I think one of the things with these agents, I don't think you will ever get away from human oversight and responsibility. Now, that for me is absolutely one of the key tenets of trust, trusting businesses, trusting organizations. It's like people still want to deal with people, right? So I understand that there might be a virtual agent on an online website. If that can't help me, I want it to be escalated to a human. There has to be somebody responsible for the decision making, and there'll always be edge cases. So no, I don't think we're giving responsibility away. I don't think we're.
I was going to ask a question, because you talk about human oversight. Do we think? I don't know if this might be the start of any particular films.
I'm concerned what's coming here.
Yeah, well, post-apocalyptic film. But could we envisage having AI agent bosses? Because I mean, if we have a team of these AI agents performing particular functions or tasks for us, could we not effectively have an AI manager of these agents? And then
you're heading down to utopia dystopia. You don't want to get too far ahead of yourselves, right? If we do that, we'll never get beyond the first stage of adoption, I don't think.
Okay.
What you will have sooner rather than later is agents working together as part of a team. So Microsoft have created something called the agent-to-agent framework.
Right.
Or they've committed to working with the A2A, the agent-to-agent framework, as part of kind of open standards for agents. So I think first off will be individual autonomous agents operating to do specific tasks or execute specific kind of work streams.
Mhm.
And once the trust is there with those, then agents may be able to work together, either internally within an organization or across
Right.
organizational boundaries. Um, Microsoft talk about the human to agent ratio in some of their content as well. It's like if you don't have enough agents or you don't use agents enough, you're going to be leaving productivity on the table. But they also say if you have too many, then that brings a big risk to people around kind of employee burnout. It will cloud people's ability to make rational judgments and decisions and all of those things. And so there are these risks that they highlight with agents as well. And they're saying, right, what's the right ratio of humans to agents within any organization? And it does vary, of course,
Mm.
across different things. But there's some things that AI will be able to do better than humans. And if you just think about the amount of number crunching that the analyst agent can do and how it can pull kind of quick insights from what might appear to be disparate information, it's then up to us to apply rationale and judgment to that.
Yeah.
So uh, AI agent bosses maybe one day, but that's way too far down the line, and you are heading down the sci-fi route there, Steve.
I'm a big
But there is
sci-fi fan. Yeah.
there is another way to look at this, right? That I heard a story the other day about an agent that was created. It was breaking the rules. So essentially, it wasn't doing what it was supposed to do. So all they did was they put another agent on front of it that basically checked the work of the previous agent before it then released it out to the to the public. So it's not really an agent boss, right? In the and what we were talking about here, but it is kind of checking work, right? It's validating work of the previous agent. It's so we're not that far off it.
Yeah, interesting concept. You want to kind of get to the productivity without burnout place first, I think. As people, I think there's so many things that we would love to do that we can't, that AI can help us with and help us do more. And we use Copilot and we use uh, these interfaces to AI and we become agent bosses. But we could just become way more productive.
One thing I'd like to touch on is governance, because you talk about the utilization and the vast utilization of AI agents or chat GPT or whatever the model might look like. How important is that governance piece? Because what we're seeing is, and to maybe slightly steer where I'm going with this, is that yes, it's all very well having AI agents to hand to be able to do X, Y, and Z, but what we're experiencing talking to a lot of our customers is actually their employees are bringing their own AI to work. They to split with any particular policies or usage policies that these businesses might have, if at all, if they even have anything in place, they're just going with whatever, and that I think is a very dangerous way to go.
Yeah, governance is a complex topic, and right, it's the domain of the lawmakers and governments, and there's different laws in Europe and the UK than there are in America. Much tighter and much stricter in Europe and America for the use of AI. So, if we think about kind of overall governance, that's one thing, and that's the from an industry standard. If we think about governance from within an organization. There was a Microsoft Work Trends Index report that showed that every age group were bringing their own AI to work. So when ChatGPT kind of came about November 2022, everybody was trying it out, and that wasn't just the Gen Z or the millennials. This was all the way through to baby boomers and Gen X, which is the generation I fit into, and it was 70% or higher across the board. In kind of this was 31,000 people across 31 countries, and all the trillions of productivity signals that Microsoft get back when you tick that box that said yes, I'm willing to share my information with Microsoft. And they discovered that people were bringing their own AI to work. So that's using ChatGPT through a browser and without any safeguards. And what you're doing there, if you were doing that on the free version, you were feeding the public model. So there was no enterprise data protection. You could be giving it your organizational secrets. You could be giving everything away. Um, so given people started bringing their own AI to work, initially there was a need for this kind of how do we protect information within the enterprise? Anything that's out in the public domain is fair game for these kind of not AI agents. They're not really anything that could have been crawled by a search engine before is now has been consumed by the large language model that is the internet that these AI agents use. So first off, making sure you have got enterprise data protection, and that's why I'll talk about Copilot rather than ChatGPT. Because inside of some of the Microsoft 365 SKUs, you will get what was Bing Chat Enterprise. It's now kind of Microsoft 365 Copilot. I can't remember. Microsoft have rebranded it so many times. But if you go into their Edge browser, you'll see a little green tick icon up the top corner if you use Copilot, and that says that anything that you put in here will remain inside of the domain of your organization. So you're not giving it out to the public. You're not feeding the public model. So there's definitely a risk there. And if if organizations are not putting these safeguards in place, I think the first thing comes around education and policy within organizations. You've got to have that awareness, and you've got to have a policy about bringing your own AI to work. The thing is, people are going to do it, and people are going to use AI once they realize how beneficial it is. So you really should, as an organization, especially an SMB, give them the tools and make sure they're using the right tools rather than ChatGPT public. Make sure they're using Copilot with enterprise data protection through the browser. You just make that policy. And ChatGPT, I think GPT-5 is now the engine that Copilot will use. So it's the same large language model anyway. It's one of the most fundamental things that a business will need to do first.
Ali, we in our line of work, we focus predominantly and primarily on CRM, and when we talk about information being fed into AI, actually, when we're talking about AI in the context of our customers using it, there's a whole lot of data. In some instances, B2C organizations, there's a whole lot of data that our customers have that could then be at risk to ill-deployed AI. So I guess it's super important for our customers and organizations with things like CRM that they are not opening themselves up to the scenario that Chris just mentions.
Yeah, I mean, that is the point of your policy, right? Your policy should be not looked at as a restriction. It should be looked at as protection, right? When we first started on this, one of the first things we did was put a policy in place, and we downloaded it. But I think we got provided a policy from one of our as a starting point, and we're looking at it thinking, well, you can't actually do anything in that policy, right? You just, I mean, essentially, you cannot use anything. So we had to change our policies so that it enabled enough innovation, but at the same time protected the business. And that for me is the balance within your policy you need to find. And I think I've extended in some of my Qubit episodes. We have a policy. I'm more than happy to share it with anyone else who's listening. If contact me on LinkedIn or whatever, and we'll share it because it's really important. It just sets the standards as how people use the technology, and it is essential piece alongside the statement, right? Tell your clients. We talked about previously in our previous insight. Tell your clients how you use AI in your AI statement on your website. It is just as important for them to understand. The amount of meetings I go in now when people bring in their own transcribing tool, and I'm sat there going, hang on a minute, you're recording my conversation here, right? I'm going to be very careful what I say in those environments because I haven't checked the terms and conditions of that particular tool. And again, if you take this full circle back to Microsoft, using the inbuilt Microsoft, I'm more than comfortable with because I know the terms and how it's going to be used it's only going to be used within their environment. But some of these external ones, I'm going to be careful what I say, right?
Absolutely. Excellent stuff. Okay, folks. Well, I think we're coming up to that time. So on bridging that gap, and any closing thoughts around AI, or around AI agents specifically, and bridging that gap before we end the show?
Do you want to go first, Alastair, or shall I?
You go first, Chris. Go on.
All right. I think this all starts with awareness for me, right? So you're bridging the gap, closing all the pieces there. People need to be aware that digital labor will become part of the workforce. And if they don't give it to their employees may go and source it from somewhere themselves. They can get access to intelligence on tap. So why would they not if it helps them do things quicker, faster, smarter? So make sure that you understand the concept of the capacity gap and think about things that you as a business would love to be able to do. If you had, let's say you could add 10 more heads, 10 more people tomorrow, what would you actually get those people to do? And then can you do that with digital labor? Can you make somebody an agent boss that is able to, or make more than one person agent bosses that's able to use then those extra heads or that extra capacity to get the productivity that you want without employee burnout? I think for me, that's the starting point for any organization for this conversation.
I'll just add a couple of things that AI won't replace people, but people who use AI, they're the ones that are going to benefit the most. And I think the other one is kind of treat it as a new employee. You want to onboard them. You wouldn't let loose a new employee within your business. You do exactly the same thing with your AI, and treat it in a similar way.
Excellent. Chris, thank you very, very much for joining us today. That's fantastic. We are going to get you back on later on in the series to talk about the frontier firm, another term from Microsoft, which we'll explore. So thank you very much.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us on QInsight. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcast from. Next time, we'll be joined by Alina from the CEO of 365 Talent Portal.
Excellent stuff. And finally, to learn more about how QGate helps businesses grow through CRM, AI, and innovation, visit qgate.co.uk. See you next time.